Are you looking for valuable business advice to reach that 7-figure revenue mark? Do you want actionable tips to properly navigate through every business challenge you encounter along the way? Let Tersh Blissett and Josh Crouch be your guide in getting you to the top here at Service Business Mastery. Tune in as they sit down with world-renowned authors in business, leadership, and personal growth who share valuable insights about management, marketing, pricing, human resources, and so much more. Let their nuggets of wisdom gold guide you in owning a thriving, profitable, and ever-growing business. Here are your hosts, Tersh and Josh.
Good morning and welcome back to the show, everybody. Tersh and I had a guest lined up for this morning and he had to reschedule. So we are going to turn the hot seat around on Tersh and talk about managing and growing your business remotely. As anyone that's listened to this show for any length of time knows, Tersh has been remote before it was cool and before the pandemic started. And so we're going to go ahead and ask him questions. We're going to try to get some questions from the live audience today and see what we can do to help you all grow your service businesses and start to think outside the box a little bit. So with that being said, this is kind of unique for me, but welcome, Tersh, to the show.
Oh, hello there. How are you? Hey, Josh. So the other day, real quick, I spotted this albino leopard.
Where's your little thing? Your little bad joke thing? It was the least I could do.
It was the least I could do. Get it?
Where do you get your jokes, man?
Where spotted an albino leopard. All right, let's go. We'll move on.
I mean, do you Google your jokes?
Should I? I probably should, shouldn't I?
You probably should. Oh man, that's a killer. So it's funny. So as some of you guys know that watch us live, Tersh and I were at Service World Expo last week. So it was nice for me because Tersh and I really only met in person maybe twice.
I think so.
And so we've never, it's just sitting there for several days in a row, being able to chat and catch up and just ask all these questions you wouldn't normally ask on a phone call. And Tersh was telling me how he is, this year they're having, we'll call it explosive growth, I guess. And as you guys know, Tersh operates 100% remotely. So there are no coming in the morning, having your coffee meetings or your huddles in the morning with, at least in the traditional sense. So we thought we would do something where we kind of turn it around on Tersh and allow you guys to ask some questions. I have some questions, and that way we can get a little more insight in how Tersh and Julie and the gang are growing so quickly and how they are managing things like culture, communication, all these things that are super important for a service business. So Tersh, I don't know if you want to start and just kind of catch us up with where your business is at, and then we'll dive into some of the questions.
Absolutely. So as most people know, Service Emperor came about January of 2020, which was an amazing time to rebrand, basically revamp the entire business, all the employees, all the most of the clientele, kind of revamp the whole system and processes and everything. And then we had COVID hit. And so it was a blessing in disguise. We kind of figured out some pain points while people were dealing with other pain points. So it kind of masked some of our errors, which is pretty cool. Cool in a not pandemic kind of way, but and we ended up actually we've grown this year. We're well over 380% growth, and our target is to continue to grow in that aspect year over year. And I've said from day one that I wanted to be remote. I wanted to be able to operate remotely because in the long run, I knew that I wanted to be able to operate companies and a business from here, even if it's located in a different state. And that was kind of one of my main targets. And when I started TriStar in 2014, that's our other business. We couldn't really do it. There was a lot of limitations. There really wasn't much in the cloud at that time, so I couldn't really do a whole lot. We used Field Edge at the time, which we had used Desco. I've used Desco in the past with the previous business that I worked at, and so I kind of knew what to expect there. But once they moved to the cloud, it wasn't the same thing as it was in the desktop. So it was kind of a challenge, because every decision that we make on a daily basis, it's to deliberately stay remote. Um, and sometimes that's easy, sometimes that's a challenge. And a lot of people, the number one question that we get is culture related. And so we meet. Uh, First off, we have chats. We chat constantly throughout the day. We
What do
we
you guys
check in.
use for that?
So we use Teams. We used to use Slack, and I really like
Okay.
Slack. I would, if someone's listened to this and they have never done any kind of internal communication, if they're still using a group chat on via iPhones, and you're just scrolling constantly trying to remember what chats go to what, Slack is just too simple to use, and it's free up to, I think, 10,000
It
messages or something crazy.
Yeah, well, I think it will continue to be free, but it's once it gets to 10,000 messages, like it won't store those. So if you do have things you
Yeah.
want to store for later use, because we use Slack for our business, and there's a little bit of a learning curve, right? Like you have to figure out like what kind of channels do I want, who do I want in those channels, but streamlining communication through Teams or Google Hangouts or Slack or I mean, there's a bunch of these programs out there now
Mhm.
is super beneficial for your business. Like it's really helped us keep organized because it is impossible to remember everything you get told on a daily basis.
Oh yeah.
And emails are great for certain things, but they suck for internal communication. Like it's so hard to find emails. And I don't know about you, but like when I try to find an email on my mobile device, like I go through G Suite and try to search for something, I can't find the emails on my mobile device that I can find on my
Tough.
desktop,
Oh
which
yeah,
is
it's tough.
really, really annoying.
Uh-huh. That's why if I'm not sitting here in my office, then I have my iPad or my laptop with me, and that's the biggest thing for me, because just like you said, even I mean, because we use Microsoft Office, and so Outlook on the phones, it's difficult to search. Also, even though um, about I think it was about 2 years ago ish, something like that. We had a little meet and greet dinner event with Ari Mizell, and he's kind of the king of automation. And he wrote a book called Replaceable Founder. And I kind of took what he said to heart there, and um, did a lot of the things. And one of those things was just spending a little bit of time and creating different categories inside of Outlook and stuff like that. So then as soon as uh, I'm scrolling through things, I can just easily move it to certain areas, and then create rules is where um, that's the biggest thing is creating rules that automatically move things after I've looked at it, or after it's forwarded to somebody else. Steve Cassette, he's actually a great guy. We had him as a guest recently on our show. He asked about handling IT. Uh, Yeah, so our office workers actually have laptops, and they're ours. Um, they're we use Steve. You would ask this super technical question. We use shoot, it is a platform through Apple management for the iPads for the guys.
Is
Uh,
that Jamf or Jamf now?
yes, that's it. That's it right there.
We use
So
the same thing for our iPads.
yeah. And that was a royal pain to get set up, and I'm still playing with it at the same time, but it's one of those things where I actually have a stack of iPads laying around here that are locked out because the password's gotten forgotten or something. So yeah, it's definitely worth the frustration of dealing with it. getting it set up to start with. Uh, we also use we use Teams. That's what we use now. So that's what I was getting into, the Slack. We
Do you want to
moved
talk?
from Slack
So
to Teams. Go ahead.
with Teams, do you want to talk a little bit about like the structure, like what you do for channels and stuff like that? So just so people
Yeah.
like maybe aren't familiar with this, they can get some ideas on how they may structure something like this, so they can keep communication
Yeah. Yeah.
relevant
Absolutely.
to certain people. That way, you don't include like all of your
Mhm.
employees on all these channels and nobody gets anything done.
Yeah, the biggest frustration that our guys have had in the past, even with Slack, was the fact that they were getting notified too much. And once you become notified too often, you start ignoring it. And I'm guilty of that myself. It's the same way with emails. I used to be the type person where I couldn't have any red dots on my screen on my phone. But now it's like there's certain ones where it's like I just know, like YouTube. I get so many notifications from YouTube. I just like, oh, whatever. It's gonna be there. You're gonna have red dots.
So you're
Where
not watching my
that's
videos.
oh, you had the video out. Oh man, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I watch all your videos. Of course I do.
Yeah, right.
So, I with our Teams, and Slack was pretty much the exact same way. Teams is a little bit more finicky. You kind of, if you're really new into the IT side of things, if you're not really tech savvy, Teams is going to be slightly overwhelming. Slack will be a lot more. Um, it'll be easier to
Simplistic.
navigate. Yeah, but I'll tell you the same way, or the same channels, pretty much, for the most part. We use a 5-3-1 process. So like level fives are the worst or the most important. They're not worst, but they're gonna either gonna make us money or cost us money. And so level five. So I have them labeled. Channel one is banter, which is like people are goofing off. They're just everybody has their notifications turned off for banter so that it's not chiming all day long. That's where people are going to send memes and whatnot like that. And that's where we really build culture, because we really can goof off a lot in there, within reason, of course. But then I stuck in a number two, and that's chat, team chat. So it's not quite banter, but it's not a level five important. So like you get to it, you get to it. And then level three, I have office chat, which is just our office staff. And then I have a level three service department, which is just our service techs. And then I have a level five, or a number five, and then it's important next to that. And that part of our communication is the important channel is that all notifications are turned on. Your banner notifications turned on. Everything's turned on. And Steve wrote a little book there. You can read that, Josh. I can't read and talk. But yeah, then I have a dispatch and debrief request. So anytime whenever somebody's ready to be dispatched, they just hit in there that they would need to be dispatched. And same with debrief. Our debrief is, I don't want to go too deep into the weeds with this, but our debrief process is pretty fast, even though I'm gonna say is it sounds like it's not very fast, but they complete a form, and it's the same form every single time, so they know what to expect on the form. And then the dispatcher reviews the debrief form, and then
That's in Service Titan, right?
that is in Service Titan, yeah. And then as long as everything checks out, she's like, "All right, you're good to go. Let me know when you're ready to be dispatched." Most of the times they'll say, "I'm ready to be dispatched now," and then she can go ahead and dispatch them. Otherwise, they'll just message in that same channel they're ready for a dispatch. Now, whenever they say that, they say dispatch please or something to that effect. Whoever gives them a thumbs up, that's the person who actually will dispatch them. So that's how the technician knows that that's been acknowledged, and expect that person to dispatch you. So like there's three different people typically who would dispatch someone. Even so, we have one main dispatcher, but if she doesn't catch it, then we have a couple backups so that they're not sitting there waiting. Um, and then we have an installation channel, and then we have a marketing images channel. So this is going to the marketing team. So one of the biggest challenges we have with that channel is having everybody take pictures in landscape mode instead of horizontal. So it's just or vertical. We're constantly trying to get them to take horizontal photos and upload them. And we do a lot of yard signs. And so every time they take a picture of a yard sign, or every time they put a yard sign out, they'll take a picture of it and upload it to that channel. George, yeah, I'll touch on the rebranding here just a second.
I'll put that back up in a minute.
Okay. Then we have parts tracking information. So our techs typically order their own parts, but if it's something that's special ordered, the dispatcher or the office staff will do it. And so it's put into that channel. And that's not going to be your capacitors or contactors. That's going to be something that's special ordered. Say we have to order a coil or something like that, and it's not something that's a truck stock item. Then we have PO requests. Whenever the guys need a PO, information goes in there and captures in there. And I could do a deep dive into that accountability of purchase orders. Receipt capture. Every time they get a receipt, they have to take a picture of it and put it in there. But we also use Dext, and that's really been helpful. The receipt capture channel is just for accountability. We don't use it for anything other than accountability. Everything else, like our receipts themselves, go into Dext, and then it's transcribed and then sent over to QuickBooks. And so that's
and now you have a lot of this stuff integrated together, right? Like it's a lot of these systems, they talk together. Yeah. So it's one of those things that, and I beat that drum all the time, and as I know you do, the longer you take to start dipping your toe into Zapier or IFTTT or some of these other, I think there's Pabbly I've seen as one of those like alternatives. The longer you take to dip your toe into that stuff, the more difficult you're making your life. Because softwares today almost always come with some kind of API connection where you can connect programs together. So instead of you manually taking one task from your CRM, moving it to another software that maybe helps you with marketing or maybe helps you with operations, get it to be done automatically so you don't have to manually do that task and hire more people because you have all these manual tedious tasks. Because what the one thing that was an overwhelming problem that we talked to people at Service World Expo, I can't find enough good people or workers or technicians. And so we have to adapt. And this is really where
that's where we really shine, is because I don't have to have someone in Savannah, Georgia to run an office. Like our bookkeeper, she's in Charleston, South Carolina. And so also we didn't have to hire someone for data entry, or not full-time anyways. And we're at the size where a typical company would have a full-time data entry clerk of some sort, whether that's the bookkeeper or that's their position.
Yeah, like accounts payable, accounts receivable, stuff like that.
Yeah, and using programs like Dext. Now, of course, somebody has to go in and just make sure Dext didn't screw something up. But other than that, it's just sent over to QuickBooks. And at that point, our bookkeeper is checking everything out. And so she's remote. And it's like, also we've had Spencer, I don't want to mispronounce his last name, Sheenan. He's out of Canada, but he's a really good dude. I was actually with him week before last, in New Jersey. He wrote this book called Entrepreneur Numbers. But
I've seen that.
It is a really good book about simplifying your bookkeeping. But he does remote bookkeeping and CPA, and so there's so many platforms out there and programs out there that will do that, and they don't do it. I mean, they'll do it for you full time, or they have people staff that will do it for you full time, but you don't have to have them doing it for you full time. You can have, they'll basically part-time wages to do something like that.
Hey, so speaking of like Zapier, because and this is something I it jogged my memory when we started talking about it. So there is an event coming up. It's October 21st. It's like a 5-hour event, so it's not all day. It's 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Central Time. And it is talking about automation, how to get started, and going into some of the different things that you can do. And if you guys don't know this, which many of you may not, there are essentially marketing companies that this is all they do. Like, so I'm pretty good with Zapier, not as good as someone like Steve. And Tersh and I probably battle back and forth with who's better on that stuff. But I have a guy or an agency that when I run into something difficult, I send it off to them, and they pay an hourly. It's an hourly fee. But here's the thing: people like that are going to be able to help you. You're going to be able to ask them questions, and they're going to know how to get deeper into this stuff without having you to figure it out yourself. Because that is the hardest thing. Like contractors, the biggest question I get on Zapier, automation, stuff like that is, I don't know where to start. I guess it's not really a question. It's a statement. I don't know where to start. And I hopefully people listening to this take this seriously. Sign up for that event. I'm pretty sure it's free. It's like 5 hours long, in a decent time of the year where it's not super crazy for people. Just start learning, start dipping your toes, start reading, watching a few videos, stuff like that, because connecting your business to automation is going to really help you guys be more efficient. So I don't know if you have anything else to add on some of that automation stuff, Tersh, but
Yeah, I mean,
there.
we do like 2,800 zaps. Now, keep in mind, that's not just with one business. That's a couple businesses there that we do all those zaps. But within Service Titan, we'll zap after every single service call, whether it needs to be a happy call from our CSR, or if it needs to be a happy call / outbounding call from our outbounder. And it'll automatically go into their task management. Wow calls, like we do all of that. There's who is that? It just says Facebook user on our end. I'll
I
kind of
don't
look
know.
over here, and
I don't know.
it's hit or miss. They Julie will take them out if they get to stinking too bad. She'll take them out to be dry cleaned. Otherwise, I'll
Sorry to totally like throw that in front of your face while you're
the
talking.
curveball. Yeah. No. Yeah, we do a lot of zaps pertaining to Service Titan. Actually, Steve actually got us set up with a couple of zaps back in the day before Service Titan came out with. Oh, it's Chris. What's up, man? So back in the day before we could do before Service Titan had a Zapier integration legit, Steve had created one for Service Titan, which he helped us do a lot of really cool zaps also.
Yeah, that's actually how I got set up first too, was his unofficial one, and then the official one, and then I realized that the unofficial one was better than the official one. So I wish I wouldn't have
There's
changed.
a couple things.
But I know
There's a couple things on the official one that have been pretty cool. I'm trying to think. I don't want to step on Steve's toes by any means, but I think that there was one. Oh, so every new residential client that gets added to the system, they automatically go into MailChimp. So they get added to our monthly filter reminder into MailChimp.
Well, and see stuff like that. That's super easy, right? Like think about your marketing, and I use this a lot because I own a marketing company. But that's some of the stuff that we do is we help connect that stuff so that way. Because before Zapier and before I knew how to use it, every month or every week we would export our list. I'd have to clean it up, send it over, import it, make sure it was right. Like it took me probably 20 to 30 minutes every week to do this.
Yeah.
And then when we got busy, guess what I forgot to do? I forget it for like 4 or 5 weeks. I forgot where I left off at. Now I got duplicates on the list. Like it's just a mess. So that was one of the first things we set up with Zapier was in your CRM, when a job is completed, we send that customer's information over to a list. And now that list, now Service Titan's much better at this than most, but you can segment that list based on job type, based on how much they purchase from you. So like and you start talking about like, I know one of the vendors we met and you were showing me before that you got a case from or a little cooler from them of cookies, like 2 years success, stuff like that. So an installation over $5,000.
I'll show you. Yeah, so they integrate with Service Titan also, and so Power Selling Pros It's what it says on the outside of this container. But whenever we got back in town, Power Selling Pros, I had a package here, and it was a little cooler, and it, Power Selling Pros sent it to us, and it actually came from To Your Success. Now, To Your Success, they've been on the podcast before, so I'll try and find that episode and link it in the show notes. But then and of course, Julie and I are on this 75 hard challenge, so we can't eat these cookies, but they're sealed.
I am not on a
last.
75 hard challenge. So if you want to ship those up to Wisconsin, buddy, you just go right ahead.
But I love the fact that, I mean, we were talking to them the other day at the show, and you can set it up so that if it's someone over $5,000, they spend over $5,000, or maybe you want to make it over $10,000, you get one package. Then the next package is down, and then somebody that spends over $200 but not $5,000, then you might want to send them like a smaller care package or a wow package, and it's going to be it's private logo, it's private branded, and you can have it so that it has your logo on it, just like the team from Power Selling Pros that's sent over to us.
And I think they had ones at the show. You could co-op those too. Like if you put the Daikin or Lennox or Carrier logo on it, you can co-op these things, so you're only paying like 50% of it. But again, it's the whole point of the automation thing is just to make you more efficient and make your business seem like it's got it. I don't know if I can say shit, but got your shit together. Like, because otherwise you have to have someone manually package this stuff, manually bake the cookies, you think of all these hours saved, you don't even realize it. And it is a full-time job or 3. And
totally.
But it's just one of those things I could beat that drum literally all day. But I don't know if we want to jump back into George's question, because you were before 2020, you were Icebound Air Conditioning and Refrigeration, right? Or is it Icebound US, or what was the actual name?
It was technically just Icebound, and it was implied HVAC and refrigeration. And I like that brand. I mean, I didn't dislike the brand. I didn't like
I love the Penguin
logo. I didn't like it.
I love the Penguin, man. No.
I mean, I didn't dislike. I mean, I didn't hate it or anything, but it wasn't.
I mean,
my favorite thing in the world.
What I'm envisioning, Tersh, is you like dressing up as a mascot and walking around waddling like a penguin to all these events and shows and stuff like that.
I mean, I'd do it. Attention beats marketing 1,000%. So.
Oh yeah, you get so much good publicity in the local Savannah market for that, because you already got the Savannah banana guy. So now you can have the Penguin. You guys can show up to the baseball games.
Well, I'll tell you, they have the Parkin' Penguins, and so I was trying to sponsor the Penguins, the parking lot, because they had the Parkin' Penguins, and they were dressed up as penguins. But that was right about the time that we decided to do the rebrand, so we had to ex-nay that. And also another reason was that a Penguin doing plumbing, it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. So we knew that we were bringing on other trades, and so before we got large, I wanted to make sure that we rebranded the company. And the biggest thing with the rebrand is letting our audience know that we've rebranded, because even people that I know within the community, they were like, I thought y'all went out of business, and it was in 2020, and people were like, I just assumed that y'all went out of business because of everything. And we had actually sent out emails, and so we're still doing that. We're still sending out emails. Hey, by the way, did you know that Icebound is Service Emperor, and that type of thing. So and it's something that's a constant battle, because we don't want, like, our new clients, we don't want them referring anything to Icebound. So it's a fine line. We don't want to throw too much of Icebound stuff out there. But yeah.
Now and I'm pretty sure you had help through your coaching organization, CEO Warrior, right? Because this is part of what they do. They helped my previous boss with the same thing. So it's not quite the same process, George. It's a very thorough process. It's a lot of understanding what is in your local market, because you don't want to be the same colors or the same type of brand or the same mascot or anything like that as a competitor, because that could really doom you, because then all of a sudden you got people leaving you reviews and they meant to leave it for a different company, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But as far as marketing, I think the most important thing is to be prepared to have a story about why you rebranded, because
Yeah, that's a good point.
rebranding just to rebrand doesn't mean anything to anyone. Like it,
Mhm.
so what? Like I get, I mean, everyone, the companies want to rebrand because they want a better image or they want to stand out more, but there needs to be a quantitative reason to your customers and to your local community of why. Like because you felt like this is going to allow you to grow and continue to add jobs in the local community, or you add services. Like if your name has heating and air conditioning in it and you want to add plumbing or electrical, well, generally speaking, you have to change your name. So stuff like that allows for a story. And Kick Charge, I mean, you're in the right place. Kick Charge is phenomenal at this. They'll help you do
Oh
the whole
yeah,
brand story.
Dan.
They
Yeah.
will they will do a kick ass logo for you. Like I work with a ton of people that have used Kick Charge, and they do. Dan and his team do a phenomenal job of really being thorough. Like they don't cut corners on this stuff. So I'm sure he'll have an entire process for you to help roll out. And obviously, George, you work with me, so we'll be able to help you with that too on some of the communication side and just some ideas and things to get out to your local market. But honestly, letters to your customer base, emails to your customer base, making sure that this stuff is bold on your website, why you rebranded, and then maybe put something like formerly Advent Air or whatever the name of your company is, so
Mhm.
people know they're in the right spot, right? Because otherwise, the worst thing that can happen is they go to your old website and they get redirected to somewhere else, and like, what the hell? Who is this? Like, I don't know who
So
this
we
is. I've
did
been doing business
something.
with this other company.
Yeah, we did something where we had a redirect page from our old website to a landing page for our new website, and the landing page basically explained what happened, the process of what happened, and then they're like service emperors who you need to search for now, blah blah blah, and so I haven't looked lately. We for a while we had a lot of traffic on that page, but we also redid our website here recently too because of Google's updates and everything. So I don't know the exact traffic on that page now. I know it was teetering off pretty drastically as people were picking up our brand, our new brand.
Yeah, and I over time, people forget who you used to be. You know,
Mhm.
they there might be some people that have been with you for a long time that will know it, but otherwise they'll know you as the new brand. It doesn't take a long time. You just have to be consistent with your message, even answering the phone. You know, let's say you name yourself ABC Heating Company, and you used to be a different name. I would answer your phone differently, at least for the first probably 6 months, and just, hey, this is whatever your new brand is, formerly whatever your
Mhm. Yep.
previous brand was. How can I help you? How can I make you smile today? Something like that.
Yep. Yep. That's what we did.
It has to be well thought. Like you have to essentially go back and kind of reverse engineer. Like look at your calls, look at how you answer emails. Don't forget your signature and email. Like there's so many little things that come along
Mhm.
with a rebrand. So as you're going through the process, maybe make a list of the marketing pieces that customers may see: email signature, phone calls, um, business cards, stuff, stickers, like all these little things that you guys hand out on every service call is going to have to be updated.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. Like sometimes people are like, I just want to rebrand. Everyone's rebranded. I want to do it. Let's just do it. And they get to it and like it's a lot of work.
It is. It
You
can
have
be
to
expensive too.
approve a lot of design. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just the graphic design part isn't cheap.
Mhm.
And then you have all of the pads of paper and the in-home things that you use, and it gets to be a lot. And even still, so I didn't really change my logo. Uh George. Um, I essentially changed the colors of my logo. I still There's places online I run into and I have the old colors and I just haven't updated. Like
Mhm.
there's a lot of things because everything is so interconnected these days. It just farms out to a million places, and you try to
Yeah.
corral that back in is really
That
difficult.
that's that honestly, that's one of the challenges of using something like Zapier and Airtable because with
Is updating it.
Airtable, yeah, Airtable, I'll create, 30 posts in a month, and then Airtable sends it to wherever Buffer, and then Buffer sends it to all the social media platforms. And so like just getting back to where it's originally at, that can be a challenge, that's for sure. I like what
So
Steve says here in his comment.
yeah, I figured I'd throw that up there just in case people are watching, they can read that. And so just so anyone knows, if you use House Call Pro or use Service Titan, we have unofficial Zapier groups for both. Steve is in the Service Titan group and is probably one of the most frequent commenters because Steve is he's really good and really brilliant with this stuff. He's way smarter than I am. So I'm just like the facilitator. I'm like, I usually tag Steve and I'm like, Steve, can you help him? Steve, can you do this? But House Call Pro, we have a group too. House Call Pro's Service Titan or Zapier integration is it's not great. We'll just leave it there. So, but for me, I wanted to touch. So, Tersh, you manage everything remotely.
Yeah.
When it comes to technicians, what do you guys do? So obviously, this is like the whole thing because most HVAC companies or plumbing companies, they have all their parts in one central location, their central warehouse. Everyone comes to their central warehouse, grabs stuff, and that's usually where the meetings occur with your technicians. What do you guys do that is different to keep your guys remote, keep them efficient, and make sure they have what they need?
Yeah, so we have the storage units nearby their house, and it's fully stocked with basically a little bit more than one truck's worth of inventory. Some of them, especially around the installers, there's a lot more ductboard than what really needs to be there, and it's like inventory anywhere else. It can get out of hand if you're not careful with it. But it's also it makes it so they stay out of supply houses, because it's for our guys, they get paid flat rate and they don't want to be in a supply house. It's inefficient for them, and they get irritated when they have to go to supply house typically. So it's right there. They can replenish it. And then the vendor actually is on I call it VMI. It's where the consignment. So they actually will help replenish that the inventory there. So that's
So who's in charge of that? Is it someone internally at the company, or is the technician that's in charge of maintaining their stock levels, or
all
is it
of
an
it, all
app?
the
How do
above.
you guys do it? Okay.
All of the above. So Service Titan, we have inventory through Service Titan. And then we have an inventory manager that works part-time and just goes around and checks everything. The TM from the supply house, they do a double check on it. But then nothing gets restocked unless it's been put into if the service technician didn't put it as a material on a job, so they can't get a truck replenishment if they didn't fill out the invoice properly. So it's kind of a check
Okay.
and balance. We had like 3 different checks and balances there.
So what Tersh is talking about, so in Service Titan and other programs, you can, when you add a line item to an invoice, generally speaking, you need materials, and there's a truck replenishment thing in Service Titan where you upload all the stuff that's in your truck, and then just like you would at a retail location, like if you're at a Target, they do the same thing. Like if you pull one from stock, it shows in the inventory system, so they know once they get to a certain number, like if you get down to 2 capacitors of a certain size, we need to reorder so we can get back to 6 in the truck or whatever the case is. But it's kind of, again, it's a little bit kind of an automated system because the software is doing the work. Your technicians just have to fill everything out, and the software does the work and allows you to just continue to operate. And then honestly, things just come. You can even connect that with your suppliers, and they can just automatically place orders for you and just keep sending you stuff. So
we used to use Stock Pro. So Watsco, if you're a Watsco dealer, if you're doing HVAC and you're a Watsco dealer and you're listening, they have a free platform that's called Stock Pro. That's what it's called at Baker's. East Coast Metals calls it something different. But they actually have QR codes or barcodes that you can print out and put inside the van and scan it, and it'll do a min max on there, and it'll let you know when the technician needs more because they've scanned it. As long as they're doing it properly and scanning it, it'll tell you that it's time for these materials to be replenished, and it's a free program through your Watsco dealer.
So would you say managing remotely has forced you to become better at systems and processes, or
Yeah, you find loopholes really quick. There's people don't see each other doing things, so everything has to be written out. Or we do a lot of videos, so you have to have a video on the process, or else people are just going to say, "Oh, well, that's not how it was explained to me." And then there's less checks and balances. So you have to be very careful with this. And Chris Hughes and we spoke on this in 2020, I think, at AHR Expo. And we talked about just being remote and having that culture, and also those checks and balances. And it's definitely one of those things that every time you find an issue, creating a new process, like, you don't want to be like so process driven that's like overwhelming for somebody that's onboarding, but it makes things a lot less complicated whenever every time somebody has a question about something, they can just go to the channel in Teams and it's there. So that's another great thing about Teams. And Steve made a great point earlier. The Teams integration, Microsoft 360, is Google is a lot easier, but Microsoft has he says a crap ton of features compared to Google, and one of those features is everything that I have stored in the cloud in Microsoft 360 or 365, I can add to Teams, so everybody can access their files. So all the policies and procedures are at their fingertips on their phone or iPad, that removes all excuses from any equation. There's always that, all the policies and procedures are there.
So I know we had Al on, and Al's big proponent of the manuals, which obviously there's always value in having those paper manuals.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've kind of taken a similar approach, but maybe a modern take on it, where you have videos for processes. Is that accurate?
We do have videos. We do have written manuals too, because being in the world that we're in, I have other organizations that I'll like, "Hey, what do you do in this situation?" And they just like, "Here's our policy," and they just send it over to us, and we revamp it, and it's in written form. Now, paper, we don't have paper. Like, there's a printer somewhere here, but if I have to pull it out, I'm usually super irritated because I don't want to print anything out. So it's it's there, it's in the cloud. We have it there and available. I actually created a website for our team that is all of our policies and procedures, but once we really streamlined the Microsoft 365, they just quit using that website. So they don't really, it was a labor of love, but it was pretty useless now because nobody really signs into it.
Yeah, and I love the idea of creating video processes. I do a roller coaster with those. Like, I'll get on a kick, and I'm like, I need to create a process for this, and I just do it, and I can screen. The beautiful thing is you can screen share,
Yeah,
or you can use like, if it's something in Service Titan, right? You can use your tablet and use like the screen share function, and like, this is exactly how you add a material to a job. This is exactly how you use task management.
So one of the things, one of the things that Al said the other day when we interviewed him that I really love, and I wish I had heard this years ago, was the 80% thing. It was, don't do it 100%, do it 80%, because I was doing a lot of things 100%, and that's like Dext. So it used to be called Receipt Bank. I have a full process on how to fill in receipts in Receipt Bank. Here's the login information. Here's the app. Well, guess what? It's completely useless now that Dex came along and bought Receipt Bank out. So now I have to go create another one, instead of saying, look, this is how you just you log into an app, and then make sure that the more important stuff was like, where are you sending it? Fuel goes to fuel. and that's been done away with now because we got fuel cards. So it takes some of the human error aspect of it out. But
George has another great
yeah,
question.
George,
This is
that's a
something I wanted
great,
to.
yeah, that is a great
So,
question too. Go ahead.
hey, Tersh, I'm
Josh.
gonna read the question. I keep forgetting to read the
Yep.
question so the people that actually listen to this and don't watch it. Um, George's question is: how do you handle the human connection if everyone operates remotely at the same time managing the company values? Which is a phenomenal question.
Oh yeah. So at the beginning of every meeting, so we have meetings weekly also. So we'll have daily huddles with the office staff, but then install crew will have an all
Now those are
company.
Zoom, right?
Yeah, they're over Zoom. Teams or
Okay.
Zoom. Teams kind of sketchy. It's glitchy sometimes, but mainly over Zoom. And we'll have an all company meeting, and and then that's on Tuesdays, and then Thursdays we have a service tech meeting, so it's like real technical, and it's basically an hour long Zoom call, uh, and then we'll have daily huddles with the office gals. But we say our core values, and all the guys, they wear the core values on their sleeves, and so they have to each one say a core value and how that core value interacted with their day the previous day if it's in the morning. And then with the office, we have a Zoom that's open all the time. And I actually just closed it by mistake over here because it was using up a lot of bandwidth on the screen. But each of us have a screen. Like Julie has a screen in her office. I have a screen and not in mine, where it's just you keep open all day long. The Zoom. So everybody, all the remote staff that's quote unquote office, they're on a Zoom call all day long. And
And you
then
keep them, everyone's on mute, right? Like they're on
yeah.
mute. And then so that way, if they do need to talk to one another, just like you would
Mhm.
in an office setting, right? Like if you had cubicles, you would just
Mhm.
kind of like peer over the cubicle and say, hey, this, that, or the other thing. They just
Mhm.
unmute themselves, say it
Yep.
to the group. And then obviously when someone can respond, they respond.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had to be creative with that too, because sometimes I'll just unmute and start going to town talking, and two of the people could be on the phone and they're like, shh, stop,
Shut up,
Tersh. Like,
Tersh.
yeah. That's always me sticking my foot in my mouth. But yeah. And then we also do at least quarterly team gatherings. And we go big or go home when it comes to our quarterly functions. We'll,
Do you mind
we
sharing
have,
some examples of like some recent like ones you guys have
yeah.
done in the past, just for ideas and to start generating things for people?
Yeah, so we do low country boils. We live on 250 acres here. And so we'll have anybody that within reason that can come here, they'll come here, and we'll do a low country boil. We also will rent like a 250-foot obstacle course slide, water slide blow up thing. And so like everybody's kids come and they'll play on it all day long and stuff like that. And so we do that, every quarter. And we do a lot of shooting here too. Where you're listeing, you might not do a lot
You
of
always
shooting
do
with
that. You're in
guns,
the
but
South, man. Everybody
yeah.
shoots in the South.
So we'll do some shooting. We have a lot of places to do that here. And then just anything. We'll do breakfast. So we try to do a monthly breakfast too, where we'll just get together and we'll go to one of our clients, one of the people that use us, and we'll do that. And then, oh yeah, Julie's in the comments here. She brought up a good point too. Like when we had to update our insurance, we'll go to the insurance place itself and do a meeting there. And it's always great because then I'll get the insurance guy to pay for breakfast. And so that's a win-win for me.
So, George, essentially, there's still plenty of human connection. It's just not every day.
Yeah.
It's not
So
every day where you
we
can like
cut
shake
out
someone's hand, stuff like that.
we cut out the hour and a half of cooler talk, water cooler talk. And everybody still chats a lot with each other. But yeah, that's kind of what
Can
I
I
wanted to
ask you a
do away
question
with.
on that? Because this
Mhm.
is, I know you and I have talked about this. So, a lot of times, like on Slack or Teams, people will still have like a water cooler channel, which sounds like it's your
Yeah.
number one. But
Mhm.
Do you find that helps with some of like the gossip crap that goes on? Because every
Oh,
company I've been
gossip's
at, we've always had this stuff, and I feel like if you're not meeting in person, you won't have as
yeah,
much of that stuff, like in those parking lot
yeah, yeah,
talks
yeah.
after the meeting.
Yeah. Gossip's a non-negotiable for us. So we have 10 non-negotiables and gossip's one of them. And gossip is defined as saying one thing about someone else to someone who has no control over the situation. So if John has no control over Jimmy, and then Peter's coming to John and telling him all about what Jimmy's doing, that's gossip. And that's a fireable offense, non-negotiable, right up. And that's something that's discussed a lot, and we have to discuss it, continue to discuss it, even because even though we don't have a water cooler for them to chat around, there's times where the text message outside of work just starts to happen, and so it's just something to have to be very careful of, and that becomes a challenge because we don't we're not in an office where we could overhear those kind of conversations.
So they're
So
almost even more behind your back than they would be. Because if you see a couple
yeah,
texts in the parking lot afterwards, and
yeah,
it just seems
exactly.
kind of like they're quiet and hush hush, and
Hmm.
it's a little obvious to see that, okay, they're talking about something, someone, a process or something. But when it's all digital, you
Yeah.
can't see it. You have no idea what's going on, and then all of a sudden you're got a big problem and you don't even know what happened.
Hmm. Yeah. 100%. And Steve made another great point. Steve, we should just had Steve chime in here too. Uh, there, Dylan said there would be no staff if there was no gossiping. No, we can do it without gossiping. It's definitely possible. But it's a chain of command thing. So like you have to understand the chain of command and the authority, the authority command and everything like that. But yeah, um, but yeah, Steve mentioned.
Julie must
Oh
be the
yeah,
one planning these events.
oh yeah, yeah. Julie is the event planner all day long. That's not my cup
Okay.
of tea.
I'm
Yeah.
like, Julie's
Uh-uh.
like, she's just firing off the stuff that she's either got planned or you guys are doing. Church is like, yeah, yeah, we did that, and we shoot
I
some
show
things,
up.
and
I show up
Church
for
is
the
like,
event.
what time do I have to be there? All right, cool.
100%. Oh, you want me to cut the grass before? Okay, that's cool. I got you.
Just make a list of the things I got to do, honey.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, about what Steve was saying, Discord, that's a good platform. I've never really gotten into Discord much. I have some friends of mine who have a podcast and they are really big into Discord, but I never could get into it. I know there's a lot of gamers that do Discord also, but
That and Twitch. Yeah.
and Twitch, yeah, same. But I just haven't ever really spent the time focused on. There's so much stuff you could do out there that um, I just haven't really spent the time searching more than what. Basically, I have a problem that I need solved, and I find a solution to it, and then I move on.
Yeah. That can be difficult for me because a lot of times I like to know what's out there and
Mm,
all the different functionality, and you go down these rabbit holes because literally, and we talked about this at Service World Expo, there is a vendor or software, I shouldn't say vendor, a software company for literally anything. I even ran into a company that has virtual yard signs, if you can believe that's a thing.
yeah,
So like it's literally a software for everything, and you can go down these rabbit holes. But that's where someone like Tersh or Steve or some of these guys who have this technology in place, they've already gone through the trials and tribulations of what
yeah.
works, what doesn't work. You can talk to people like them, and there's dozens of them out there now, and just you can save yourself the headache of
I could tell you
trying
what
one and
doesn't
then trying
work with
another.
Teams. Like I like what I love about Slack, and Steve mentioned it. He alluded to it earlier. Like with Teams, with Slack, I love the integration with Zapier because I could share things as myself. Well, Teams, it doesn't. It comes in as a Zap from Zapier, so it looks kind of goofy and it's not as um,
Personal.
yeah, personable. And so and then there's certain things in Teams that are just horrendous, and there's nothing I can do about it. Microsoft doesn't care what I say about any of these things, but um, but yeah, Steve's a great, I learned so much from Steve, and they had their business, the business that he works for, they do a ton of automation. And so you can learn a lot from them also.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's any like other big outstanding questions you get a lot, because obviously you've
I would
talked about
say,
this enough. People probably come to you and ask you these like questions like, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing
oh
this
yeah.
remotely. What do you do for this or that?" Is there like a really big question that maybe we haven't answered?
Yeah, that would be, yeah, George. I
George.
don't know about all that writing books and stuff. The communication with clients. So with us not being all in one office, so with the office staff, quote unquote office staff, I use air quotes there, they're not all in one central location. It's hard for us to overhear conversations. So we use Podium for that. And so all of our outside client communication comes in one spot, and that's in Podium. And that's been a game changer for us.
So how do you? I was gonna, and that was one of my notes, and of course we got on different topics, so I forgot. So you have your 3 office staff who are muted on Zoom. Something
Mhm.
comes in through Google My Business, Facebook, or whatever, goes into Podium. How do you make sure like multiple people aren't answering the same request?
It
Is there
tells
some
you
kind of
it,
system for that?
it tells you automatically on there who's answering it. And even if somebody's in the middle of typing something, it'll tell you real time that they're typing it out. They're typing.
Okay, so you can
So
see that somebody's doing something before
yeah.
you start typing out a response.
Yeah. And
Okay.
there's people like we have the chain of command, or we have who does what when. And so before I would answer anything, uh, I typically would go into Teams and say, "Hey, has anybody answered this person, or are you prepared to answer for this person's question?" Blah blah blah. Because I'm the last person that answers the questions in there, because usually I'm way out of the loop, and usually if I answer, it's going to be the wrong answer. So and Julie
I'm
commented
learning that.
in the comments below, uh, I, everybody that's on staff with us, they do their job, and they do it way better than I do. And one of the things that Julie mentioned in the comments was that the quote unquote office staff, the Podium lets all of us see who are talking to the clients. And so that's one really good thing for me, including the technicians. So when the technicians need to text the clients, they like, we know that the technician has texted the client, and that's the accountability aspect of it for the technicians. And the client doesn't know who's texting them, because it all comes from the same phone number, which is funny at times, because they'll say, "I don't know if this is Julie, or if this is Katie, or if this is Tony, but I just need this to get to a certain person," and they don't realize that it goes to us all anyways. So
Yeah. Well, and there's one other thing that, as we're talking about the remote team, I know we're getting close to an hour, so we'll wrap it up after this. But we talked about this a lot while we were down at Service World Expo. So especially being remote, it's a little harder to train your office staff on like calls. Calls coming in, how to train your team on how to get better and improve. So you guys, I think you told me you guys hired a coaching program to help your
yeah,
staff with
yeah,
answering calls and getting better at booking, right?
absolutely. So all of our calls are recorded. And that's one of the things with that we really push our technicians to call with Service Titan as well, so that it's all recorded. But we use Power Selling Pros. And I think the episode was just released, Erica with Power Selling Pros. And then I think Zach is getting ready to come on the show, and Brigham's going to come on the show too. We hung out with them a little bit while we were down, or up in Kentucky, down in Kentucky
Down
for
for
you.
me.
But yeah, so but yeah, they're going to come back on the show, and they've been on the show a couple of times. But yeah, we personally use them for that. And there's also, if you go to the link that's in the show notes right there, there's a little discount for you too, to get signed up with Power Selling Pros.
You guys got to realize, like when we went to Service World Expo, Tersh is like a rock star when he goes to these things. I literally
Not
like
hardly.
couldn't walk. I couldn't walk 10 steps without someone saying, "Hey, Tersh, what's up, Tersh? Love your show, Tersh." So when we were hanging out with the guys at Power Selling Pros, like there was this, I think it was with the young kids, Zach.
Zach.
Steven
Zach.
was teasing him because Zach is like in awe of Tersh and like a super fan. I asked him when his bobblehead collection's coming out of Tersh, so that way we can send Tersh bobbleheads to everybody.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, we need to do that.
But yeah, there's a little discount there for you guys. Power Selling Pros, they were one of like the first companies out there to really help with answering your phone.
Yeah.
And this is something that I talk to clients all the time. Like there's 3 ways for you to grow your business: get more leads, book more of those leads, driving a higher average ticket. Like if there's 3 things to work on, like obviously all 3 at the same time would really help you grow. But a lot of times you have enough leads or you have enough people in your database. You need to either book more calls or you need to drive a higher average ticket and learn how to offer other additional services. So, and stuff like this would be point number 2. Power Selling Pros helps your team book at a higher rate, provide better customer service, make your CSRs happier, like just happier when they're on the phone. Like they don't dread it. Like they're just, oh yeah, hi, this is Service Emperor. I want to book your, like I've listened to calls and I literally want to scream at how people answer the phones because they're not happy. They're not happy people, or they just don't like their job.
Gotta smile.
Yeah, you got to smile when you talk, and Power Selling Pros really helps bring that out of your team. So I think there's some, there's going to be some bald freaking bobbleheads, man.
That's funny.
But yeah, so hopefully this was helpful. We kind of covered a wide range of things, so hopefully somebody gets at least a little bit of value out of this show. I don't know if you want to close it with anything or
yeah, I mean, if you have
thoughts?
any questions about any of this stuff, don't hesitate to reach out to Josh or myself. I mean, any of us, because this is truly, like, this is completely unscripted because this is how we do things all day, every day. So you have a question about this, like, let me know, because I could help you out and point you in the direction. And there's a lot of people that I probably didn't even mention, just because, I mean, there's so many people who have had an influence on making this automation. Absolutely, Steve. We'll send you some bobbleheads to Canada too. But yeah, there's a lot of people out there who have helped out tremendously with making us remote and making it possible for us to be remote. And it also takes a different mindset for the technicians. So if you took your business right now and you just threw them out in a remote atmosphere, be prepared for some kickback. It's something that I would probably ease into if you haven't been remote and you've been in business for a long time. It was easy for us because we were new and the business was young. So
yeah, it's one of those things that it definitely you need to ease into it. Like it's like anything in your life, right? Like if you just tomorrow woke up and you decided to be a totally different person than everybody knows, they're going to be like, what's going on with you? Like, you know, so it's going to be some kickback. Just do it gradually and reach out on Facebook groups, reach out to Tersh. I'm happy to help where I can. I never operated an HVAC company that way, but my company now is remote. So I'm kind of going through some of the same things that Tersh has as far as setting up our business and systems and stuff like that. So
we didn't talk about it, but there's the whole aspect of call, you know, people in Philippines answering phone calls and stuff like that. I mean, you have all kinds of remote people doing stuff. So yeah, that's a whole nother rabbit hole we could dive into, but that's probably best for another show.
Yeah. So hopefully, and again, I don't have a great outro because this is my first time being the actual host of the show. So, but hopefully this was super helpful to anyone listening or watching. Until next time, we do have some really cool shows coming up. We met some really cool people at Service World Expo. So hopefully you guys share this podcast and get it in front of some other people, because we're going to be talking about some really cool kind of cutting edge stuff here coming up. And we hope that you guys all continue to tune in. Until next time, let's, I don't know. I need a tagline. I'm just going to end it.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Service Business Mastery. Now that you are equipped with essential business advice from this impactful conversation, you are one step closer to becoming the successful owner of your dreams. If this episode has been helpful to your business journey, don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and share it with other owners as well. Visit servicebusinessmastery.com to learn more.